What's up, CrossFit St. Charles? Let's talk a little bit of rowing technique, rowing efficiency, how to get the most out of it, and some common faults that we see and how to fix these things. So we're gonna do our best to make this one quick, because rowing, believe it or not, I think it's one of the more technical things that we do in the gym. I don't think we think of it as a super technical exercise all the time, but the more and more I've spent with rowing, the more time I've spent with rowing, the more that I tend to focus on my technique and my form and staying efficient on the rower to make my workouts a little bit better rather than just going as hard as I possibly can. So here are the couple of things that we think that you should be thinking about while you're on the rower. First thing, go ahead and make your handle in the setup position with your feet strapped in. We're going to talk 3 points of the rower today, and the first one is going to be the finish position of the rower. We're going to kind of teach this from the top down. So I'm going to grab my handle, I'm going to extend my legs out all the way and pull the handle all the way to the bottom of my sternum or right at the top of my abdomen. A few things to note here while we're in the finish position of the rower. Legs are locked out and they're strong. They're not just kind of like hanging out right here. I'm squeezing my quad muscles, just generally thinking strong legs. So punching down into the platform, thinking strong legs, and then my elbows are pulled back nice and hard, but I'm not driving the handle into my chest, into my belly hard. That's gonna give you this sensation that we have to hit our chest really hard every single time that we do the row. We don't need to do that. That's a movable object hitting something that's not going to move. It's wasted energy. So we're just going to drive the elbows back and get really close to the bottom of the sternum here. So this is the finish position. To get down to the start position, where we're going to talk about next, a few things to look at. We want to see your hands come back first. So the handle is going to stay right over the kneecaps before you bend your knees to bring your body all the way forward into the start position. So one more time there, I drive myself back, handles get really close to the sternum, hands come back first, and then we're gonna bring the knees forward into the start position. While we're hanging out in the start position, we're looking at 2 things here. The first thing we're gonna look at is, where are your elbows in relation to your knees? If you find that your elbows are drastically farther behind your knees, or maybe really far in front of your knees, you could probably improve your position just a little bit. I like to keep my elbows hovered right above or in really close proximity to my knee whenever I'm in the start position of the row. It's gonna make sure that our hips aren't too close to our ankles. We like having a little bit of space here, and it ensures that we're using the back side of our legs, the big powerhouse of our body, to drive the handle back and to stay balanced and as I come back down into the rower here. So that is the first piece of the start position. The second piece of the start position is making sure our back is nice and rigid here. It's often common that we can lose a little bit of tension here, and when our back isn't as rigid, we start to get rowing that kind of looks like this, where our back turns into a bent fishing rod, and we're not getting as much drive and power as we can out of the rower. When that starts to happen, the chain is going to move just a little bit, but not as much as my body is moving back. As soon as I make my back nice and rigid and I drive through the legs, I get a lot more movement from the chain. So we don't want to waste any energy in the chain. Keep the back nice and rigid so as we drive back, we don't waste any distance in the chain. So those are the 2 pieces that we're thinking about in the starting position here, making sure the elbows are in close proximity to your knees and that the back is nice and rigid as we drive back into the finish position. So last thing that we have to talk about is going to be the actual drive, how we're taking our body from the start position and bring it all the way back into the finish position and then back again. It's leg drive. We're thinking about using our legs, strong legs here. The arms are just kind of assisting at the very end of this movement. So this is a leg drive exercise with a little pass off to the arms at the very bottom. So let's get nice into position. Elbows stay in close proximity to the knees. Heels are planted. We're going to drive off hard through the legs. Finish back. Hands come back over the knees. Come back to the start. Drive through the legs. And then we come all the way back through into the start. A couple of pulls. I'm going to know I have a good rowing stroke when I can hear that fan in the erg start to make a lot of loud noise. When I move backwards, it ramps up. You like the sound effects? Yeah. We know we have a good stroke going on. A couple of demos of not so good looking strokes. We're gonna show what happens maybe when the back doesn't stay so rigid. We get that little fish hook thing. The rower isn't as loud when we do stuff like that. So it's not as loud as I pull all the way back. I can get my arms to kind of create a little bit of tension afterwards, but I'm using all the wrong muscles here. And it sounds much different as soon as I tighten up my back. The flywheel gets a little bit louder here. One more thing to look at is what are you doing with your knees? If the knees are coming forward too fast and we're not letting the handlebar get over the kneecaps before we come down, our row can start to look something that looks a little bit like this, where the torso stays in the same angle the whole time we row, and we're getting a whole lot of upper leg drive, and the knees are working just a little too hard. We're not getting the full force up out of our legs. So we want to take this position. Again, we're going to look to try and find our elbows in close proximity to the knees as we row. And focus on leg drive with a rigid back as we're coming into the finish position. Making sure that you slow these things down while you guys are in the middle of a workout with rowing in it is going to help your technique in the long run. If we just row really, really fast every single time that we have a rowing workout, we're never going to really improve our technique. And improving your technique on the rower is going to make you more efficient, it's going to make you more powerful, and you're going to enjoy this element a whole lot more. Be sure to think about those points today as you guys are doing your rowing and the rowing in your workout, and get a little bit better with your technique rather than just going as hard as you can. Let's see how that happens and tell me how that made you guys feel. Be sure to shoot me a message. Thank you, and always, if you ever have any questions, be sure to send me a personal message.